ultraviolet light, and then you should avoid midday exposure. So if you want to go on a picnic or play tennis or hike, do it early in the morning or later in the day when the intensity of the sunlight is less. Use a sunscreen that blocks both long and short wave ultraviolet light, and use hats and clothing. Now, the people who populated Australia, there were Aboriginal people already there, but the new ones who came in were people who stole a potato from Ireland, and they were alleged they were criminals. They were put on ships, and they were taken halfway around the world and thrown into the Sydney Harbour Bay, and they went ashore and survived. Now, today, to have been one of them is like the Daughters of the American Revolution. It's a high status thing to have been one of the early inhabitants of the continent of Australia. But they all didn't have very much protection from sunlight, and now they were in a very intense sun climate. And the rate of melanoma and skin cancer just soared in the Australian population. And so they started public health process of slip, slap, slop. Slip on a hat, slap on a shirt, or slap on a hat, slip on a shirt, slap on a hat, and slop on the sun protective sunscreen to try to prevent cancer. And they've done a good job of tipping over the skin cancer increase curve has been bent downward. The other thing they did in Australia was they bought every tanning parlor. They bought all the machines. They bought them off. There are no tanning parlors on the whole country of Australia, so that people weren't going to go pay to get more skin cancer. And they're doing a good job of educating their people about photoprotection. Sunscreens block ultraviolet light, and your sunscreen should block both long and shortwave ultraviolet light. I use Vanicream 60 sunscreen. It has zinc oxide, it has titanium in it, it blocks long wave and short wave ultraviolet light. Don't forget to protect your lips and your eyes. Make sure your sunglasses are polarized, because that causes cataracts, having unpolarized sunglasses and light coming in, and protect your lips with appropriate sunblock. Now, if you're like me and you spent most of your life getting sun damage until I was 18, 20 years of age, and then I was headed to medical school, and then I went to dermatology, so I've been a really good boy. Everybody says, you know he's a dermatologist, he's wearing long sleeve shirt, long pants, protected his hair. But even if you start when you're retired, this study from Australia shows that regular sunscreen use can reduce the number of pre-skin cancers. So here's a person without much in the way of protection, and sun damage has occurred over time. We call that actinic sun damage, elastoidosis, damage to the elastic tissue. And this is the elastic tissue of the skin. And you see all that little black squiggly stuff? Everybody here know what a Brillo pad is? Anybody not know what a Brillo pad is? Well, prior to sun damage, this was soft. It flowed easily and was smooth and not brittle and not looking like this. It was like an egg in a skillet on a stove before you turned on the heat. You pick up the pan, it just flows around. It's smooth, it's flexible, it's pliable. What happens to us with sun damage is it's like the egg becoming gelled, and the elastic tissue becomes like a Brillo pad, and that's the cause of the wrinkles in your skin. Now, it's pretty hard to make that stuff go away once it's there, but we can resurface those roads and build new collagen and new elastic tissue above the Brillo pads, and that reduces the wrinkling. Sue and I spent a lot of time in Minnesota where there were two seasons, winter and road repair. So you know what happens in road repair? They're filling all the potholes. Well, that's what you do when you have sun damage. You want to try to improve the situation. So, photoaging. Regular use of sunscreens can protect against photoaging. Here's a study from Australia. The daily use of sunscreens reduced aging by 24%. So they had 903 patients under the age of 55 years. They evaluated them for 4.5 years. One used regular daily application and frequent reapplications of sunscreens, and the others were, quote, whatever their usual use was. Then they took models of the backs of the hands in the two groups. The assessors did not know whether they were a user or a not user, and they graded these for lines and coarseness. And what they were able to show is that the use of sunscreen reduced the signs of aging by 24%. So they are proven to be of value to prevent actinic keratoses from becoming skin cancers or even from coming up, and to reduce photoaging. And they've banned the tanning salons. So this is what those Brillo pads look like in the skin. It's pretty hard to take all that away. And so we try to cover it over. We'll talk about that in a moment. There has been a lot of sort of rumors and internet chatter about sunscreens, and are they safe? Do these sunscreens do some scary, noxious, bad thing to people? Careful studies have been done. Nearly 300, it would take 300 years of daily applications to match any of the animal studies, and whatever happened in animals is extremely weak. So very likely very safe. Titanium dioxide and zinc oxide are just fine. They block long-wave ultraviolet light. All these chemicals have been used for a long time and are safe and are not going to be harmful. So any claims that sunscreens aren't safe are scientifically refuted. Now, everybody knows that vitamin D is a sunshine vitamin. So you have to get sunshine to get vitamin D. You eat vitamin D, it goes in your body, goes out to the skin, sunlight comes in, hits the vitamin D molecule, and makes it active. So the sunshine vitamin. I'm just telling you, avoid sunlight. What do we do about vitamin D? There have been a lot of worry and concern about vitamin D deficiency. People were checking vitamin D levels in their patients, and then were trying to make sure that they got up to the appropriate level. And the Institute of Medicine established a certain level that should have been satisfactory. It has been thought that deficiency of vitamin D might be associated with a lot of chronic diseases, so we got to make sure that we're getting plenty of vitamin D. So here's a dermatologist, Henry Lim, who's president of our academy this year, his perspective on vitamin D. Well, why do we have this vitamin D and what's happening with it? Evolutionarily, when all of us were from Africa, all of our skin was very dark, but there was a lot of sunlight there, and so photons of energy got through and plenty of vitamin D was made. As those populations migrated, they moved into the Middle East, and then they moved to Western Europe, and they moved out into Asia and across the subcontinent of India. And as people got further and further north, where there was less and less sunlight, they were getting deficient in vitamin D. And so evolutionarily, the amount of pigment in their skin fell off so that they were light-skinned in terms of pigment, so that the vitamin D could get through, because it was important for building strong bones and a variety of other things. So now we come in our time and we take a look at Danes. What do the people in Denmark do? When it's winter, they want to get out of there because it's dark and cloudy and cold, and they don't like it. So they get on a plane and they fly to the Canary Islands for 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, sometimes 8 weeks, and they get a lot of sun damage. So they checked them out, and they checked their vitamin D levels before they went, and they checked their vitamin D levels when they came back, and they also did some fancy skin things. And what happens was that they really didn't do much to their vitamin D levels, but they sure did a lot to damage their skin. So it's not really necessary. And 15 minutes for those of us who don't have a lot of pigment in our skin, 15 minutes of weekly exposure to your legs and arms. So if I have on my cargo pants and a t-shirt and I go to the shopping center and I walk from my car into Target and then back out to the car, and then I go to Staples and I buy something and walk out to the car, I got it. I got all the vitamin D I need. If you're worried about it, or your skin is very dark and you don't get your inside all the time, well, you can take some supplemental vitamin D. You know, milk has been fortified with vitamin D for a long time. So you can use supplemental vitamin D if you're worried about it, but don't damage your skin to try to get vitamin D. Any questions about that? All right, what do we do about wrinkles? Well, here we have things that we call fillers, soft tissue fillers that do a really good job of lifting some of these deep wrinkles. One of the things we can do is to get rid of some of these fine wrinkles is use vitamin A acid, tretinoin, which we use also to treat acne, and it's very helpful in improving fine wrinkles, pigmentation, and blotchiness of the skin. It's available generically, so it's not really very expensive, but once you do this, you have set yourself up for sunburn, because now you're more likely to have sunburn. Now, how do we know this works? Studies were done at the University of Michigan. They started patients using this so that you wash the face. If you feel like you must use something to wash your face, you wash your face. Then you put the water on the face. Then you put the amount the size of a pea on the right cheek and the amount the size of a pea on the left cheek, and then work it in, but don't get around the eyes or the nose or the lips. And then wait 30 minutes before you put your face to the pillowcase. That may cause some irritation to the skin. You might have to skip a night or two, but pretty soon your body is very happy with retin A, vitamin A acid every night. 3 months pass, can't find anything by electron microscopy improving. 6 months passed, oh, maybe something's going to happen. A year passes, oh yeah, man, we got it. We resurfaced, we're filling in those potholes. We're covering that Brillo pad. Now you have to stay on the horse for the rest of your life, because if you stop, you lose the advantage. And you have to start using sunscreen and a big hat so that you don't get sunburned, because you're set up for sunburn. But we can improve that situation simply with something like this. Deeper ones, there are a variety of things we can do, but you can resurface over here. Or we can do skin augmentation things with collagen. And initially we started out with collagen, and the collagen was taken from cows. And then people said, geez, you know, if there's mad cow disease, and you take the collagen from the cow and you inject it into my face, are you going to give me mad cow disease? So they moved on to something better. And of course it wasn't there anyway. But hyaluronic acid is part of your skin, and we can inject that in there, and that works well. You don't want to be the first person that they use this on, but some people are very skilled and just get magnificent results using these various products to get rid of wrinkles and Botox and other things to improve the situation. So, another effect of sun damage is pigment. Pigment production is the result of sun damage, proof that injury has occurred, and then you tan. Now sometimes areas tan better than other areas, and then we have freckles. And so here we have our pigment cells. It's called a melanocyte. Its total function in the world is to make melanin, which is a pigment, package it in something called a melanosome, and distribute it throughout the skin to make the skin darker, to protect you from the photons of energy that are coming from the ultraviolet light. Sometimes there's areas that get a lot more pigment than other areas, and those are called freckles. And we have a fancy word for them, also called lentigines. But they're dark areas. Here you can see on the left-hand side, somebody who's had frequent sunburns on the shoulder, now getting freckles, people with type 1 and 2 skin, redheads, and light-skinned individuals. The right-hand side is a pediatric cardiologist who doesn't like to wear a hat or sunscreen when he's playing golf, so he keeps coming into us to take care of his sunlight-induced freckles. And we worry that that might become a malignant melanoma are a skin cancer, so we see them very carefully. So freckles are due to hyperpigmentation as a protective response to sunlight. Difficult for us to bleach those away. Now, some people, when they take oral contraceptives or they become pregnant, they get a darkening of the skin, the mask of pregnancy. That is very hard for us to improve. As a matter of fact, it's embarrassing to sit here in front of you and tell you that our ability to manage pigment, like a rheostat in your dining room, no light, low light, low, a little more until you have a bright light, we don't have anything close to that. We don't even have an on and off switch for pigment. We try to, in some way, mitigate too much pigment with lots of medications that can't use them very long. And as soon as you forget to use your sunscreen, as soon as you forget to put your hat on and you go out and you get a sunburn, everything you just improved with the bleaching agents is back. Because those pigment cells are ready to fire up and go at 100 miles an hour. The other thing that happens to us as we get older is we get barnacles. If you leave your ship in the water long enough, you get barnacles on the hull. If you live long enough, you get seborrheic keratosis on your skin. So that we see elephants and saw the barnacles on the posts as we got on and off the ship in Sitka. And if you want to get rid of barnacles, you can take your saltwater craft into lake water, and the barnacles will die. But for us, we're getting barnacles on our outer part of our skin. They're not skin cancers. They're very common. They're called seborrheic keratoses, and they're mostly of cosmetic concern. Unfortunately, we don't have any salve or cream that we can put on them to make them go away. They all have to be removed surgically. Medicare does not want to pay to have those removed. But we have to kill the cells that are making this benign keratosis on the skin. So we can freeze them with something 25